G'day viewers, my name's Graeme Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists do what they do.
Well, hi folks. Well, we are back in New Zealand and we are at a beautiful place called Charteris Bay out in one of the peninsulas across from Christchurch. And we're going to be spending the day with a very talented lady, Sue Currie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Graeme.
Lovely to be here. Now, Sue is a fantastic watercolour artist and also an oil artist, and she paints a lot of the beautiful scenery around New Zealand, just some magnificent stuff. And we're going to be spending the day with her today, actually painting part of the New Zealand landscape. It's a really, really beautiful place. So, but when you first started, it was about 9, you were given a pencil set.
Yes.
Derwent pencils, but about the age of 11, you realised you wanted to be an artist. So you got involved in that. Your dad basically said you needed to be a secretary, but I think when you're an artist, deep in your heart, you sort of say, look, this is what I've got to do. So
Yes.
tell me about the motivation, I mean, from 11 years of age to being where you are now as a full-time artist.
It started, as I say, with the pencils.
Yeah.
And it was just something about the way they go across the paper and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just love them and the colour.
Yep.
And I think that's come right through to today. It's the colour thing.
Yeah.
And drawing.
Yep.
And it excited me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really wrapped in things that I was told that I should be doing. And then the older I got, and as I got through school, the more I knew that I wanted to do the art thing and not the secretarial in an office. I didn't want to be in an office. Just became really definite about that.
Yeah.
It was driven from my heart. I just felt that that's what I wanted to do. So it was all stopped out, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you had a love affair with the water as well.
Yes.
You know, sailing when you were young, and I think that
Yes.
from the looks of your work, you've had a love affair with nature
Yes.
most of your life, and New Zealand being such an extraordinary, beautiful place. But you've actually already made a start on this particular watercolour.
Yes.
Now Sue's going to show us her varying techniques, some very interesting stuff, some really beautiful work you're going to really enjoy today. And I'm going to step out of the scene as I normally do and chat to you along the way. You've actually got a little draft sketch that you've made up here, but I'll get out of the way and I'll let Sue get on with the process of putting this together. Okay, Sue, well, you've got your little draft that you've done,
Yes.
plus your photograph. You got any recommendations as far as painting on photographs is concerned?
The camera generalises in the dark areas. Also, the colours don't have to be painted exactly as the way you see it. I like to create my painting and not make it look like a photo reproduction. So from the photograph that I take, I look at some of the details and shapes, and then I do a colour, very rough colour sketch.
All right, so how does Sue Currie create one of her masterpieces?
So I start with wetting the paper, brush, just the area where the cloud is in this one, because I have to work out where it's going to stop.
Yep.
And I don't want the cloud to go all the way to the bottom through, which will change my other colours.
I think the beauty about pre-stretching your watercolour paper as well is it really prevents it from buckling a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I use a lot of water and a lot of paint and a lot of layers, and it just won't work unless it's firmly held down. So I'm using some yellow first. This will of course dry lighter than what it actually looks when it goes on, being watercolour. A little bit of red. I sometimes put browns in my skies too.
Yeah, well, I always say that you should put some of the colours that are in the landscape in the sky.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do that. And I need some indigo. I might just put a tiny bit of burnt umber into that sky. Right hand side. dry the brush, pick up the bead, so it's quite wet.
Mr. Bead. Yeah, you've got a piece called Evening Atmosphere that has got all of those fantastic reds and purples and yellows in it as well. It's a great piece, sort of simply stated but very dynamic. You've got one here that's in oils as well, using those purples and yellows and oranges and reds, called Evening in Tai Tapu, which is pretty dramatic as well, without a doubt. So what inspires you to put all of those yellows and oranges and reds in the sky?
It's about light.
Yeah.
It's backlighting in a way, because the mountains are very dull in colour, so I like to brighten the skies up, but I also love colour, so I like to splash on some colour, and often, yellow's the sun coming through.
Yeah, you've got a real dramatic contrast in some of the things that you do with. You were saying before that in the summertime you've got the brown grasses,
Yes.
but it's still snow
Yes.
and blue up in the mountains. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's the contrasts come out quite dramatically. There's another one that you've got called Road to Walter Peak, and I really like that, but it's just that you've got all the browns of the land and it changes into the reds and the blues, so it's a very dramatic looking picture.
So that's all I will do at this stage, and then I have to wait till it dries and then put on the next layer.
Okay.
I've just dried off the sky, and I want to make sure that's totally dry before I do any more painting on it, but I'm going to go down now to the grasses so that I paint the painting as a whole, not just starting at the top and working down, and being very careful about the line.
You're going to put a line there.
Where the mountain joins onto the flat part of the grasses. I want to make sure that's very, very straight.
Got an old matchbox and a ruler.
Yes. It's the same technique I use when I'm doing seascapes,
Yeah.
cutting in around the rocks, making sure that there's plenty of paint on, I'm not starving my brush.
This is still a dry technique because that paper's fairly dry, isn't it?
This paper's dry now where I'm putting the grass on. This is my first wash.
Okay. So you spent some time in Sydney in Australia at some stage during your career as well.
Yes, I left New Zealand shores because there wasn't a lot happening for a lady artist in Christchurch. So I decided to test the water. I was told that I was only allowed to go if I had a job to go to. So there was one advertised in the paper, which I applied for and got. Set up the flat, sort of went from there. I left the job to freelance artwork first, and then I had some lessons and got totally hooked on painting, and it never ever looked back. And I just did less and less commercial work and more painting. I had a client that wanted things urgently because they couldn't get anyone to do it in a hurry, so I used to work all weekend on that and then paint all week with my other stuff, and then the fine art took over and I just cast fate to the wind and kept on painting.
So in the process of painting all these years, what artists have influenced you along your journey?
In Australia, very much Tom Roberts. Loved his colours and the style, and I could relate very well to that, and McCubbin as well. And then I came back to New Zealand, and Austin Deans, the late Austin Deans, I really admired his work. And Els Nordhoff, I did a weekend with her. She was in Dunedin, and she taught me a lot about lines that I hadn't thought of before, but then after that I put more lines in water, straight lines. And there's probably many artists that I really do enjoy as well, but they're just a couple that come to mind straight up.
There you go.
So now the grasses are dry.
So you've got a sponge there, is that right?
I've got a sponge here, and I'm just wetting it, and I'm just going to soften off some hard lines that have gone on the tops of the grasses where they meet the rocks. So now I'm going to wet this top where the sky and the mountains meet, and I'm going to put a neutral grey wash from the sky right down to the grass, leaving out a little bit. I've put a wet area along where the green is going to go later. So I don't want a hard edge. You've got to work out with watercolour where it stops and starts. So I'm thinking ahead. Use picking up the last bead as it goes, because the board's on an angle, and you want just the paint to run into the tooth of the paper untouched, so that it doesn't leave any lines when it dries.
Yeah, a lot of the colours that you've got in your watercolours are very brilliant. You've got one called Autumn in the Valley of Cheviot in North Canterbury. We've got the poplar trees, a little creek below. It's really spectacular.
It was a beautiful scene. So a farm, you know, so beautiful just to look at.
Even some of the oil paintings that you've done while you're overseas, you've got one Axmouth in the UK, which is an oil, but it's a stunning piece with boats. Colours are fantastic in it.
I love painting boats.
Yeah.
I see the kind of background. Everywhere you go, the boat's so different. It tells a story, you know.
Okay, Sue, so we're still moving along. So what do we go to now?
I'm going to put another layer on the sky. I'm going to wet it.
Okay.
And I'm going to start building up the grasses in the foreground.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put the first layer of green on the headland.
Okay.
Yeah, and put the rocks in.
You don't find that the extra layer of water doesn't strip up the watercolour underneath at all?
No.
Doesn't?
No. It doesn't stay there for long enough to let that happen.
Okay.
Because it's totally dry.
Okay.
It won't pick it up.
Okay.
I have to wet the bit that I'm even not going to paint on so that it won't leave a hard edge. So I'd like to put it on wet and then let it run into itself and let the pigment move before it dries.
Uh-huh.
The idea is to have it looking soft. That's what I'm aiming for.
You've got some other pieces that you've done in oils as well. And there's one called Dart Valley Central Otago, which is a lovely piece. Once again, you're really using those contrasts between the blues and the greys of the mountains, and then those dry yellows and oranges. And then there's another piece that you've created called Lyttelton Hillside, which is just around the corner from where you actually live.
Yes.
Great little piece.
That was painted a long time ago, and it's probably not even there anymore since the earthquakes.
Oh, of course, okay.
So I've sort of put that in there as being partly historical.
Yeah, it would be now.
So I'm putting some burnt umber in here. And I use a split brush technique.
Split brush?
Yes, for the grasses. I don't paint every blade of grass, and I don't paint every single tree in a headland or a mass group. Just a few strokes and dots to indicate that. And I try to say as much as I can with as little brushwork as I can manage.
So you're sort of wetting it and then continuously drying the brush out.
Yes. So this painting had quite a lot of energy in it, with the mountains going one way, the hillside that way, and then the grasses going vertically. I like to try and get some action into it.
Yep.
A lot of the shapes in a mountain are triangles, so I like that hard edge part of it. So I'm just putting a wash over that whole part there and treating all the mountain background as one piece. And when I've drawn this in, I'll get a wet brush and dry off the top where the clouds meet the mountains, and also wet so don't get a hard edge where the bushes go. So this first wash will go right across, and then I'll, to build up the depth of field, put another layer on it again. As this gets closer, I'm putting a tiny bit of yellow to make it greener towards the foreground. Looking for some shapes here, a few shingle slides as it gets towards the bottom. When I first started painting, everything was with flat brush. And I ventured to rounds, but I still use the flat ones for certain things like this. I'm just softening the top of this edge now before it dries off. This is very good paper. It's a rag paper for lifting. So it takes a lot of punishment. So I love it.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many artists use a rag on watercolour.
Oh, okay.
Yes, each to their own.
I do quite a lot of scrubbing out.
Yeah. Yeah, with a lot of your watercolours you end up with a great juxtapose, like the piece Sunset in the Matukituki. Have I got that one right?
Matukituki.
Matukituki.
That was a beautiful evening there. Goes right up to Mount Aspiring, or close to Mount Aspiring when you go the other way. I'm just mixing up some yellow. I'm going to put another lot of indigo and to make green. And New Zealand native bush is very olivey. It's not bright green like Hooker's green. So I always put burnt sienna or burnt umber into it as well. So I've just mixed up some green with yellow, like a primary yellow, and indigo, and a little bit of burnt sienna. So I'm going to block and looking at the whole piece as one block, and then I'm going to drop some burnt sienna into it in places. I'm looking at the bush overall, which is made up obviously from separate pieces. Each one's slightly different in colour. So I've used a slightly bigger brush to get this far, and then I'll reduce it down to a smaller brush to get into the details as it gets closer to the cliffs here.
Now there's one piece that I'd really like to talk about. It's called The Path of the Rakaia River, and I just love the way that you've actually put the reflections and all of the sandbanks into that situation there. I mean, that must have been a wash underneath, and then you've worked dry over the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
I leave the water very light. I don't make it all blue or green so that it shines with the sun shining on it, so it's almost white. So I've mixed up cobalt blue with a bit of burnt umber in it, and that's the colour for my rocks. So I'm just going to, which is a just slightly different kind of grey to the one that's in the mountains, even though the mountains are probably all made out of the same rock. So this is the first layer. I'm not going right to the very bottom of the tips of the grass, because later I'm going to lift that out to join the grey part of the rock. But I love painting rocks. I think there's a lot of rocks in New Zealand, especially in the South Island, that I know best. Don't have to go far before you find them. And all different types of rocks too.
You've got some other pieces that you've done which are beautiful as well, with a lot of the old buildings, and even the buildings that were, unfortunately, some of them destroyed in the earthquake. There's one that you've got called the Shed at Teddington Banks Peninsula. The colours in that are just fantastic.
That was Ra's shed, and it's been rebuilt. You wouldn't even know it now. I love the shed the way it was before. It was there for a long time.
Yeah. Another piece you've got called the Boat Sheds, Paradise Bay.
Yes, just along the beach.
All of those great geometric shapes, and you can see that the sun's out, and
yes,
that's fabulous.
They're sort of craft in itself, those sheds.
Also, due to the fact that it takes you a little time to paint these indoors, you do put some quite spectacular detail into your work. You have very kindly painted us another one that's a little further along of the same scene. That'll enable us to be able to get through and actually see a really nice finished product, and finish it off so that you can actually get to see what this piece is going to look like in the end, which is pretty cool. Okay, Sue, well, we've put the other piece up, which is obviously a little bit more along what the first piece was. What else do we need to do in this piece?
On the edge of the riverbank in the distance, there's rocks. Most riverbanks have dark edges, and that makes the water shine out more. The really good thing about living in the South Island is that the mountains and the sea are so close, because it's such a long, narrow country.
Yeah.
and it's all there, you know, with just a few hours drive.
So out of all of the work that you actually do, what do you find the most rewarding as far as subject matter is concerned?
Oh, it's hard to say there would be a favourite, because I go somewhere and I go, oh, look at that, got to paint that. And then I can go somewhere entirely different, like away from the sea and into the mountains. And it's all there. It's just, I just love it all. So it's really hard to say what I like most. It's probably just where I am at the moment.
Yes, you've got one here called The Source of the Waimakariri, which is the water reflecting on the mountains again. Those brilliant orange and yellow trees that you get along the river sides in New Zealand really contrast with the blues and greens there.
That's the very large river north of Christchurch that flows right through to Christchurch. That was at Beeley, which is further north on the way to Otira.
Yeah.
So I speak about the moment sometimes with my work, and that was a moment, because if you go back even a day, sometimes the next day, it doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
So that's where photography comes in to its own, really. But also, I'd look at it for a long time and try and remember it. So I use my memory for what I want to do. So while I'm standing there taking photographs and sometimes sketches, I'm thinking along to the finished work, what it's going to look like when it's completely finished. I have an idea in my head.
Okay, well, that was a fantastic day, Sue. Thank you so much
Thank you, Graeme.
for having us in your studio.
Pleasure.
Lovely woman, and very, very skilled as well. And you know, it's easy when you live in New Zealand, when you're surrounded by such amazing beauty. It's quite extraordinary. And you know, I recommend if anybody wants to come over here that's an artist, or even somebody that just loves art and wants to invest in art, this is a great country to come to. Also, while we're at it as well, we work really closely with New Zealand artists these days. They've done a great job in helping us out. They do articles on us as well. And I highly recommend subscribing to the magazine. It's really fantastic. Go and see Rob and Megan, or just give them a call, and they'll put you down, and you'll be in touch with a fantastic magazine. Your website as well, Sue, is?
Yes, suecurrie.co.nz.
Yeah, so go in and see Sue and have a look at some of her work, have a chat to her as well, and come and see us at colourandyourlife.com.au. Facebook page. Also, our colourandyourlife.com.au website has a whole bunch of things going on these days, so come in there and join us in there as well. But until we see you guys again, as we always say, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life from New Zealand this time. Bye, guys. See ya. Bye-bye now.